Today, we're going to be talking about the new technologies that can be used to reach more mobile phones. And specifically, we're going to be talking about GOTV. I wanted to start off by talking about some of the new telephone town hall features. So we've talked about these synchronized text to action, but with GOTV, what you're doing is basically sending these text messages as soon as the teletown hall event ends to your mobile participants, and you're urging them to go and vote the next morning or submit your mail-in ballot or vote early, whatever form of voting is available in your state. And again, we've seen the response rates with text to GOTV to be several times higher than just cold text, emails, or digital ads alone. Kurt, want to add anything about using text for GOTV during a teletown hall?
You can do text and you can do the ringless voicemail. In the last election in November, we did a congressional race out in this part of the country, whereas they mail their ballots out, they mail in their ballots rather. And so you get a count by the end of election night where you got about 95% of your audience already counted, or 90%. The part they haven't counted are the people who drop off their ballots at the last minute because they know they can't mail them in. So you do one of these ringless voicemails or whatever and say, hey, too late, drop it off. It's not going to get counted if it gets there after deadline. It's not California. California, they wait up to 2 weeks after. So it encourages them to get their ballots in. Anyway, this particular candidate was down by election night where they counted 95% of it by 4,000. But what hadn't been counted is those ones that we had pushed 110,000 ringless voicemails. We did 2 waves of it on a Friday and a Monday. In the end, he won by 2,500. So it is a difference maker. It can flip a seat, and it did flip a seat in this particular case. So these ringless voicemails are a big deal to get out the vote one way or the other. Back to you, Sean.
Yeah, and some of the other applications for these ringless voicemails. Number one, we had a senator in Texas use these ringless voicemails to drive people to his last-minute GOTV rallies, and he actually increased his attendance at his GOTV rally by 25% and just sent out this message, literally hours before the rally. So if you do this further in advance, you're going to get even better results. Thirdly, I also want to mention that we had a number of other U.S. Senate candidates that basically used this in lieu of or in complement of texting. Some of them actually weren't able to register for 10DLC in time. Others were finding that their texts weren't being delivered leading up to Election Day. And so this was a much more time-sensitive way to communicate with voters. Again, they could do this same day and literally send out millions of live ringless voicemails. Getting back to teletown halls and why they are so effective, I did want to say that teletown halls are really the next closest thing to having an in-person conversation with a voter. So we talked about that authenticity. We talked about the perception that most voters feel that they had a personal conversation. Teletown halls, because it's a personal call from the candidate, are actually the aberration from the norm. People are getting 50 text messages last election cycle for every one phone call. And so they really cut through the noise of the number of peer-to-peer texts that people are getting. And then they're really quick and easy to set up. Our teams provide full service support for your event. So you're really just focusing on the conversation. So again, you don't need to register for 10DLC for teletown hall events. You simply script the event, provide the telephone list, and we train you to use the interface. And we can even provide a co-host and screeners for you throughout the event. Lastly, I wanted to talk about these live voice broadcasts and how they were used in this last election cycle and some of the early primaries this year. Again, the live voice broadcast is like a compliant robocall to mobiles, except with live voice. So we actually had a number of state legislative candidates that were actually administering these live voice broadcasts themselves. And that was because it only took maybe 5 minutes to send out 20, 30,000 personal voice messages to their constituents before Election Day. The second advantage to this we found in the state of Indiana, as many people know, you're not allowed to deliver pre-recorded message either to live answers or to voicemails without their consent. But again, with live voice broadcast, you're actually delivering live voice. You're not delivering a pre-recorded message. And then thirdly, we had a number of really large PACs that were delivering literally millions of live voice broadcasts to get out the vote in their states. And the other thing that's great about the live voice broadcast, as I mentioned, you can collect keystrokes. So you can actually record who's already turned in their ballot or who's already voted. You can remove them from your list, and then you can more economically get out the next round of live voice broadcasts. So Kurt, before we wrap things up, is there anything else you want to say about these GOTV tools and how you think they're going to be used in this next election cycle?
Yeah, as far as the one you talked about in the state senator in Texas, what we added to that one was we implored them to press one if they were going to show up to the dance, as it were. Why? Because they pushed one, they felt more obligated to show up to the dance to go to the rally. It really helped out a lot, actually. And then Nate had a question. Is there a difference to how to use telephone town halls for candidates as compared to issue campaigns? What are your thoughts on that, Sean?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that one. So we've had dozens of issue campaigns do teletown halls. I'll give an example. We had an issue campaign in Washington state. So it was a statewide ballot initiative. What we did was we actually broke the universe up into 30, 40,000 voter constituencies so that we could talk about local issues or messaging that was appropriate. Let's say in the Seattle area, we were focusing more on urban messaging. Obviously, if we're reaching out to some of the farm areas, we were talking about the impact on the farming community. So teletown halls allow you to micro-target your messaging to smaller demographics. They did about 30 teletown halls. And during those teletown halls, they patched through to the legislators. And they were actually successful in getting that ballot initiative voting down. The issue campaign attributes that largely to the series of 30 teletown halls and the patch throughs associated with that.